And we're back again here with Week 12 MLS picks on the MLS Digest show here. Welcome in, everyone. And it's a little later than I would have wanted, but we actually got another episode out on the channel yesterday. We started our power ranking series for MLS since we're a third of the way through the season, so really encourage you guys to check that one out. Had a lot of fun making that. But yeah, let's get into these Week 12 picks. But just to get a recap on Week 11, we had 6 picks, which was our most so far for a single week. And we went 4-2 with plus 1.67 unit profit. So, good to bounce back from a very, very minimal losing week, our first losing week before. And now we're back on the right track. And just to recap those picks, we had Charlotte and Timbers under 3. And it was pretty smooth sailing for the most part. Charlotte came out with a 2-0 victory at home over Timbers, who are still winless in their last, I think 6 or 7. And then we had Miami, Red Bulls, both to score in over 2.5. Red Bulls got an early goal, and then Miami, man, just packed up the Red Bulls, completely distanced themselves in that Eastern Conference, top dog conversation. Messi with 5 assists and a goal, 6 total goal contributions, just absolutely insane stuff. And he's looking really good, looking healthy. Kind of just probably an autoplay for their matches, as we've discussed. And then we had San Jose LAFC over 3 in that game at Levi's Stadium. And San Jose with a huge win to get their kind of season turned around in a way. They're definitely feeling better about themselves. I think that ended 3-1. San Jose raced out to a 3-0 lead shortly after halftime. And then LAFC got another one back to get us over that line instead of just pushing. And then we had Rapids double chance on the road against NYCFC, who was looking really, really good at home. But they played some weaker teams before that, and we took advantage. Rapids have been looking good so far. And Rafael Navarro, just a really, really good signing for them so far. Rapids ended up winning 2-0, so that money line, which was also some pretty good value, came home as well if you took that. So those are our 4 wins. And then the 2 losses included, we had Vancouver -1. They played against Austin, and Austin, like we predicted, just kind of mailed it in, sat back. And it's been working them to their credit in recent weeks. They've been picking up points through that method, especially on the road. Vancouver probably feels hard done because they had a goal disallowed for a handball in the buildup, and then kind of a 50-50 pen call that wasn't given. But then they had the entire second half to capitalize, and they were just kept whipping crosses in and all that, but couldn't get anything done. So unfortunate there. And then we had Saunders team total over 1.5, which was probably the more disappointing one because they were facing Galaxy, who were missing Puig and Joveljic. And the Sounders were at home. They were coming off a big win against Union, but the attack just isn't wasn't meshing as they were the game prior. So they didn't take advantage of that opportunity against Galaxy. So somehow Galaxy, probably one of the worst defenses in the league, as good as they are offensively, they've shut out the Sounders twice now, which is crazy to think about. But anyways, still a really good week. I'm going to have 5 plays for Week 12 now. There was one more play that I was maybe considering adding, and I'll include that as an honorable mention and kind of my thought process there. But I lowered it down to 5 for this week, and I'm feeling really good about these as well. So let's just get right into it. The first of the 5 picks I have is between Red Bulls and the Revolution. Red Bulls back at home here. I'm picking the Red Bulls -1 for -105. The money line super juiced, and I can see why that is. So we're gonna go with -1 here, and get that push protection because I do expect them to win here. The Revs are still bottom of the East. They just beat another bottom feeder in terms of with the Fire, so they got only their second win on the season. So a bit of a confidence boost for them, especially since that was on the road. But this team still has only 7 goals on the whole year. And yeah, I mean, this is pretty straightforward for me. The Red Bulls, they just got thrashed by Miami, but I don't think that's gonna, derail them or anything. I kind of talked about that in the power rankings video, but they've actually only Nashville and Montreal have played less home games so far this season than Red Bull, and I think they're really gonna want to get back going here at home, and start feeling more comfortable about themselves. They've kind of had some more poor results recently because of some stupid red cards. So as long as they avoid like dumb mistakes like that, I don't think that's gonna be too like of a trend with them, because their defensive numbers are just too good. Third best in expected goals allowed. They don't give up many chances. In 4 home games this season, they've only allowed 2 goals total. Obviously, the Revs are not a high flying team as of this first third of the season. And even though Red Bull's underlying numbers in terms of their attack aren't like anything special, they still have these special players, and they're gonna try and press Red Bulls to death, or my bad, the Revs to death, and just bring that high intensity back, especially at home. And yeah, so I'm not gonna take that juice money line here. I think the Red Bulls are just a class above the Revs, especially they're in that upper echelon in the East, regardless of that last result to Miami. Their attack is really loaded this year, and I'm just gonna trust their guys more, because I'm not gonna overreact to one win from the Revs, because they're still once again, it's another road game on this road trip that's gonna take another toll on them. And yeah, the Red Bulls are, we know who they are, and I'm just gonna trust them to get pull themselves away in this one, and get back to winning ways, because they're winless in their last 4. Next up, we have the Hell is Real Derby between Columbus and Cincinnati, this Ohio rivalry, and I'm taking Crew money line here at home, because they're just the better team. The standings aren't showing it as of right now. But that's because, as we've talked about, the Crew have been on this amazing Champions Cup run, and they're in the final against Pachuca, which is that's actually a month away. So the schedule congestion is not there for the month of May right now. They're gonna have about 4 or so games, just uninterrupted MLS, and I think they can really focus on it now a little bit more during this stretch. And it starts with this huge derby game against Cincy, who has been really good in their own right. They're second in the East with 21 points, 3 wins in a row. But generally, just the Crew are a better team than Cincy here, and they're gonna have everyone healthy. Everyone's gonna be at full force. They've gotten enough rest since that second leg at Monterrey. And yeah, just to throw some stats at you guys, both these teams are in that top third of expected goals allowed so far. Cincy being 4th and Crew being 7th. So they're both not giving up plenty of chances. And they're both kind of right neck and neck in terms of their offensive output. But I think the difference right now is that's because of the Crew schedule congestion and squad rotation and all of that. And they're still finding ways to get points in MLS, as they've dealt with CONCACAF Champions Cup. So 5 draws in a row for the Crew, which is kind of a head scratcher, but at the same time, it's really impressive, because they're still pulling out these results, albeit like some of them are against lesser teams, but they've been dealing with so much. It's really unprecedented. So to not even lose in this stretch is really impressive. And so I think that's affected what their numbers say in terms of their attacking output. But I think with Cincy, it's how it looks on paper is what's actually how they are and what's true to them, because they have they've definitely lost a beat still, even though they're second in the East in terms of their attack, because they lost Brandon Vasquez. They've been kind of swapping strikers. They got Corey Baird, and they're kind of running Kubo as this second striker. Meanwhile, Bupenza's getting into bar fights, so he's just completely out of the picture. So I don't trust this attack as much. Acosta's been pulling the strings, and they've kind of been beating up on some lesser opposition. And that's not to take away from them, because this defense is still legit for sure. Giving up 9 goals on the season, but same with Columbus. So both these defenses are legit for sure. They're obviously 2 of the top dogs in the East. But Columbus has won 4 of the last 5 home meetings in this rivalry. They won 3 of the last 5, including last year's playoff matchup. And yeah, I just this derby has seen plenty of goals, but between both sides in basically every matchup. But I could honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a more of a low scoring one. But I'm not completely sure what to expect here in terms of that the scoring, because both these defenses are really respectable. But I think, Crew being at home, finally being able to focus on MLS a little bit, I'm gonna take the edge here. This is a great money line price for them, for basically the best team in MLS besides Miami. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing to not like here. Um, this should be a really interesting and fun match to watch regardless. But Crew's top guys as a whole are just so much better than Cincy, and this is a spot I really, really like and have to take. For the next pick, I'm taking the under 2.5 between Sporting KC and the Dynamo. KC's back at home here after a mini little road trip, and Dynamo going on the road here after 2 straight home games. But a big part of this is because of the fact that both these teams played in the U.S. Open Cup midweek, and each of those games went to extra time and to penalties. So, a handful of each of their main starters got around 60 minutes or so. So like they started, they got decent minutes, and then even the normal starters who got subbed on ended up getting around that same amount of time as well. So a bit of tired legs. It's not gonna be huge. They're not gonna be hugely tired, but it definitely affects them. And both of them, or Kansas City actually had to travel to Union Omaha to play them in the U.S. Open Cup, and now they're coming back home. Dynamo got upset by Detroit in penalties, so they're definitely not in the highest spirits, even though they scored 3 goals in that game. But again, it's against a lower tier side. But the fact of the matter is, in MLS, Dynamo are a double-edged sword in a positive way for this bet, because they're second worst in their attacking output in terms of expected goals per 90, but they're also in that top third of expected goals allowed per 90. So they're not giving up much. They're having a lot of possession, but they're not really creating anything with it. They still need to look for a real quality striker in the summer, or something along those lines. And they're not converting on their chances. They're scoreless in 3 straight games. They lost to Austin at home, Dallas on the road, 2 Texas rivalries where they got held to clean sheets. Then they went back at home against St. Louis, who has been pretty suspect defensively as well this year, and it was a 0-0 draw. So if you take out this Open Cup game where they explode, I guess, for 3, it's 3 straight scoreless. They haven't been looking great, and even though Kansas City's defense has not held up recently, I think they're definitely going to want to get that a little, they're going to want to right that ship in a way, come back at home. I do kind of favor them here to get a win, but I don't think it's going to be, I don't think there will be many chances in this game. Kansas City's offense as well has been pretty abysmal since the early, 5 or so games of the season. They're only they're 6th worst in their own offensive output. So once again, a lot of starters for both these teams played about 60 to 70 minutes because of that extra time, even when they got subbed down late in regulation. So that's going to play a factor. Neither of these teams are feeling too great about themselves. I could see Kansas City squeaking out a 1-0 win here or something along those lines. But Dynamo's defense, especially on the road, is definitely going to be hard for a team like Kansas City to break through. I think both these teams are going to be really stubborn, and I just don't see much going on here between these two teams. I think this match is completely up for grabs, but it shouldn't be a shootout. For the 4th play of the show, I actually have my first 2-unit play of the entire show channel, and I'm taking St. Louis on the money line here. I was actually considering the 0.75, so splitting the money line and -1 at about, I think it was like -115 or something along that. But I think this money line price is still low enough for me to play it, and especially for 2 units. I really like this St. Louis side. I think their attack hasn't been like as build, or I think there's another gear for them to hit. Um, their underlying numbers are pretty good offensively. I think there's just been too much rotation between their top strikers. Adeniran's been kind of in and out and injured. Um, but I like what this team is about. They like to press a lot. That causes a lot of problems for teams, and especially for the Fire, who have had way too many defensive mistakes at the back, unprompted mistakes as well, that have led directly to goals, and just constant giveaways. And this Fire team is seventh worst in terms of expected goals allowed per 90. And just to flip it, they're scoreless in 4 games, including I think it was at least 2 at home. Yeah, so, or my bad, 3 at home, 3 straight actually. Their last 3 games were scoreless. They just lost to the Revs. They got bounced 4-0 by RSL, and they couldn't take advantage of a 10-man Red Bulls. So this offense is just not clicking right now on any front. Shaqiri's not being a playmaker. Haile Selassie's been injured, one of their better young wingers. And Kuipers just isn't getting the service he needs, and the defense has been holding up, to kind of help with that as well. So St. Louis here at home, rowdy atmosphere. I just really like this team, and what they're about. Lowen is a big miss for them in midfield to kind of help with their transitional play, and just he's one of their more star players, but this is just a complete mismatch. The Fire are one of the worst road teams in the past handful of years in MLS. Their last 2 road games, they've also been shut out as well. And even though they've kind of owned this, what should be more of a publicized rivalry between St. Louis and Chicago, the MLS is just is kind of holding on to St. Louis versus Kansas City. They've owned this rivalry so far. The Fire actually. Since St. Louis came in the league last year, they beat them 2-1 in the Open Cup, and then they beat them 1-0 in their only MLS meeting last season. But both of those were at where the Fire hosted. They haven't played yet in St. Louis, and I think it's going to be completely different here in this season. The way the Fire are looking, there's just no reason to trust that anything will turn around. Just as a fan myself, I know that the sporting directors and everyone just aren't committed to a winning project or anything like that, and it's just been a carousel of coaches. They're spending this money, but they're not actually putting together a roster that works, or is able to get the right results. And just the added fact that they're just horrid on the road, and St. Louis is just has a much better attack, a much committed system, players committed to their system, and some good quality players. I really like this price here. I think minus 0.75 is also a good play here, because I don't see how the Fire keep up, because they're too mistake prone, they're too undrilled, and the waves that St. Louis is going to be sending at them, I just don't think they're going to be prepared for it. So this could get out of hand. But we're just taking the money line here, obviously. I think this should be a comfortable win for St. Louis. That's about it. For the 5th and final play of the show, I'm taking both the score and over 2.5 at even odds between the Rapids and San Jose. And I really like this price here, because San Jose, the hit rate for this bet in San Jose games has been, they've hit in all but 2 games this year. The only 2 were where they were shut up at home by Whitecaps, who are a really good defensive team. 3. So 3 out of their, 3 out of their 11 games. So they've hit in 8 out of their 11 games for this bet. The only time has been when they've been shut out, because they can't hold shutouts, to save their lives. So even on the road, they've scored in every road game so far as well. Rapids just got a huge win over NYCFC on the road, like we talked about. They've scored in all but one of their games this season, so they're adding to the score sheet as well. Their attacking numbers are really good as well. San Jose's defensive numbers obviously can't be, overstated enough. Their goalkeeping has been horrible this year, even though they're underperforming their defensive numbers. At some point, we just keep seeing that it's just a bad defensive setup, a bad roster in the back end, and I'm not saying that their attacking roster is the greatest, but they've definitely have higher end talent to me, and players that have been there longer. And with that win over LAFC last week, I think they're just clicking a little bit more. Um, and I think they can add one to the score sheet because I don't expect them to win here. But I do expect goals here because Rapids have been, their output's been pretty good, regardless of what their numbers say. And I think Mihalovic will be back because he was a late scratch at NYCFC. But I don't think that's gonna be an issue for this week. So that just adds to their output and their potential, especially back at home. And yeah, I mean, even though Rapids defense has been in that top half of the league as of now, I think San Jose's kind of turned a corner in some way, just in terms of their attacking output, because I'm definitely not trusting their defense here. I think the only way this doesn't get home is if San Jose gets blanked. But I like their potential here. They did just play an Open Cup game, but they were at home and they're only traveling to Colorado, and obviously that's a big altitude thing, and that's obviously going to be an advantage for the Rapids, but it's not a far trip, and most of their front 3 or 4 guys did not play in that game at all. They played a lot of their younger guys, including Nico. So I don't think tired legs are an issue here. Rapids didn't have an Open Cup game. And I just really, for this price and the hit rate on this, considering San Jose has scored in every road game even, which is pretty surprising to me, because they don't really get results on the road, obviously, is what they haven't been getting results this season, but they definitely don't get results on the road in recent history. But the hit rate has been there, and Rapids have definitely been in some back and forth games recently. So I'm definitely banking on the Quakes here, to contribute, because Rapids should pick apart this defense easily and probably win. But I like this value in this play more. So I just wanted to throw this matchup in there because I feel like we just have to mention it this week, since it is kind of like a rivalry week in MLS. We had the Hell is Real Derby talked about earlier. And even though it's not officially kind of recognized with MLS, that St. Louis Fire game should be a rivalry. And this is another one of those. The Timbers and Sounders, the Great American Rivalry is one of the names for it. It's also part of the Cascadia Cup Derby, which is between the Timbers, the Sounders, and the Whitecaps. Throughout each season, whoever gets the most points or results against the other 2 teams ends up getting that cup. And so this is like my honorable mention, and I just wanted to kind of just include this game because I think it's a really intriguing matchup. It's the only Sunday game, while the rest are on Saturday. So it's a solo spot on Mother's Day. And yeah, this was a really intriguing matchup to me, but I can't really trust either of these 2 teams right now. It's a evenly priced game. It's literally a pick 'em. I think both these teams are like plus 155 to win. And for good reason. I mean, the Timbers have been abysmal. They've been scoring in bunches, but they also have been giving up goals in bunches. I think they're winless in their last 7, as noted previously. Actually, let's make that 8. So 5 losses and 3 draws in that time. And they've scored multiple goals in a lot of those games, but they're just so bad defensively. And the thing is that the Sounders really haven't been too impressive offensive, on the attack, but somehow their underlying numbers are showing that they're creating a lot. But if you watch these games, like, I just don't see that. And yeah, so it's a really hard game to read. It should be an exciting game, I think, because just because of the nature of the rivalry. But yeah, I think for Timbers, I was going to lean Timbers draw no bet because both of these draw no bets are basically like minus 110. So that's a really good price. So if you want to trust one of these teams, you could take that option. And I might end up folding and just taking that bet, on the side, if I see like the right lineups, because there's a couple like lineup things I'm looking for still. But De La Vega is still going to be out for the Sounders. I think Timbers are getting a couple guys back, including Char from a red card. So I think if Timbers really want to turn this really bad run of form around, I think this is a great time to do it in a rivalry game at home. They've kind of had the Sounders number recently as well in the matchup. And yeah, I just don't think the Sounders are that great offensively. They burned us last week, obviously. So I think Timbers, this is the type of team Timbers can, right the ship against in terms of, on the defensive end. And the problem is that Evander's probably going to be missing this game as well, which is one of their key DPs. And he kind of runs the show in a sense. They still have a lot of attacking talent around him, including Rodriguez, who signed from Club America, but he hasn't really gotten going yet. So it is just hard to trust either of these teams right now. But I do lean with this home Timbers side just slightly. Yeah, I really don't know what to expect in this game, but it's gonna have that primetime spot on Sunday, and it should be a really exciting game. So I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, I just wanted to take you guys into like my thought process there. Thanks for watching and supporting, as always, guys. Just to recap our season so far, since we started in week 5, and after that 4-2 week 11, we're 21-8-3, and now we're up plus 12.35 units. So a really good return so far. Trying to keep that going. And just to recap the plays for this week's show, we have Red Bulls -1, Crew money line in that derby. We have Kansas City and Houston under 2.5, and then our first 2-unit play of the show, St. Louis money line against Chicago, and then we have Rapids and San Jose both scoring over 2.5. So I love all these plays, honestly. This week, once again, I really try to pick my spots and not get ahead of myself with kind of like 6 or more plays. Like that was our only time doing that last week. Maybe later down the road we'll have that many plays, but there were a lot of honestly not so intriguing or tough to call matchups like we talked about in that Portland-Seattle derby. So yeah, once again, really like these plays, and good luck with all your bets, and I'll see you next week for week 13.